we all know exercise is good for us.
Right.
But today, we're going deeper than usual.
Okay.
Down to the cellular level where your workout is doing something pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's fascinating how we tend to focus on those visible results, like getting stronger or losing weight.
Right, right.
But this new research from MIT, published in Advanced Healthcare Materials,
Oh, cool.
dives into the intricate relationship between our muscles and our nervous system.
Okay, so this deep dive is all about how muscle activity actually impacts nerve growth.
It really does.
And you might never think about your workout the same way again. I'm excited to get into
To
it.
study this, scientists at MIT essentially engineered muscle tissue that could exercise in a petri dish.
Okay, so they grew muscle tissue in the lab and then made it contract, like shining light on it or something.
Yeah, basically.
What happened next? Did it, bulk up and start demanding a protein shake?
Well, not quite. What they were really interested in was the mix of biochemical signals called myokines
Myokines.
that the muscle tissue released when it contracted.
So like a chemical message being sent out from the muscles?
Exactly. And they found that when they exposed motor neurons
These are the nerves that control our muscles, right?
Yes.
Okay.
to this myokine soup,
I love that.
the neurons grew 4 times faster than neurons that weren't exposed.
4 times faster. That's insane.
Mm.
Neuron growth is usually, incredibly slow, right?
Yes, typically it's a very slow process. This kind of accelerated growth is unheard of, which is why this is potentially groundbreaking. And it wasn't just about the speed either.
There's more. Okay, I'm already intrigued.
Yeah.
What else did they find?
So the researchers analyzed the neuron's RNA, which basically gives us a snapshot of which genes are turning on or off. It turns out the myokines were also influencing how the neurons matured, how they communicated with other nerves and muscles, and how their axons developed.
Hold on, back up a second. Axons. Remind me what those are again.
Sure. Axons are those long, slender extensions of nerve cells that transmit signals
Right.
from one neuron to another, or from a neuron to a muscle.
Okay, got it. So the myokines weren't just making the neurons grow faster, they were also influencing how well they functioned
Yes.
and connected with other cells.
Precisely. And that's where the implications for things like treating nerve injuries
Okay,
and neurodegenerative diseases become really significant.
so we've got these myokines supercharging nerve growth, but there's another piece to this research, right?
Right.
The mechanical side of exercise.
Exactly. Remember, neurons are physically connected to muscles. So when you move and your muscles contract and stretch, your neurons experience those forces too. They're getting tugged and stretched right along with the muscle.
Okay, so it's not just the chemical signals from the muscles affecting the neurons.
Right.
But also the physical forces of the movement itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To study this, the researchers grew neurons on a special magnetic gel mat, and they could literally jiggle it around
Wow.
to simulate those physical forces.
So they were giving these neurons their own little workout.
They were.
Clever. What happened? Did they start doing microscopic push-ups?
Well, not quite push-ups. But what's remarkable is that the neurons that got their workout
Okay.
grew just as much as the ones exposed to the myokines.
Wait, so the physical act of moving those neurons had the same growth-promoting effect, completely independent of any biochemical signals.
It did.
That's wild.
And this is the first study to show that the mechanical forces of exercise alone can stimulate nerve growth like this.
So it's not just a chemical thing, it's a physical thing, too. You're telling me that every time I stretch or move, I'm potentially helping my neurons grow.
That's what this research suggests, yes.
Wow, I never realized the physical forces of movement could have such a direct impact.
Yeah.
That definitely changes how I think about my workouts.
If we can understand how these two mechanisms, the biochemical and the mechanical, work together, we might be able to develop new therapies
Oh, interesting.
that mimic the effects of exercise to repair damaged nerves,
Okay.
or even treat neurodegenerative diseases.
That's an amazing thought. Hold on, we need to unpack this further. I'm dying to know more about the implications of this research for conditions like ALS.
Okay, let's dive into that next. ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis,
Right.
is a devastating disease where motor neurons progressively degenerate, leading to muscle weakness and eventually paralysis.
And what makes this research particularly exciting for ALS is that it suggests a potential way to protect or even regenerate those damaged motor neurons.
Exactly. Imagine if we could harness the power of myokines,
Right?
or develop therapies that mimic the mechanical forces of exercise
Wow.
to slow down or even reverse the progression of ALS.
This research is giving me so much hope for the future of treating these kinds of
It's
conditions.
definitely an exciting area of research. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
I can't wait to explore those possibilities further. But for now, I think we should take a break and come back to delve deeper into this groundbreaking study. Okay, so we've established exercise isn't just about building muscles.
Right.
It's also about potentially supercharging our neurons,
Yeah.
both chemically and mechanically.
It really challenges how we think about what exercise can do.
You know, it's interesting because I've always associated ALS with muscle deterioration,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really those motor neurons that are failing.
That's right.
Yeah.
The muscles themselves are essentially receiving faulty instructions
Right.
or no instructions at all from the degenerating motor neurons.
And that's why this research is so potentially groundbreaking for ALS. If we can figure out a way to keep those motor neurons healthy and functioning,
Yeah.
or even regenerate new ones,
Right.
we could potentially slow down
Mm.
or even halt the progression of the disease.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of harnessing the power of myokines
Right.
or mimicking those mechanical forces of exercise comes in, gives us new avenues to explore in the fight against ALS.
But let's get back to this whole mechanical force thing for a moment.
Okay.
This is the part that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the actual stretching and tugging of the neurons as the muscles move.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that different types of exercise
Uh-huh.
likely exert different kinds of mechanical forces on neurons.
Okay.
Think about the difference between lifting weights,
Yeah.
where you have those short bursts of intense contraction,
Right.
versus something like yoga,
Okay.
where you have those sustained stretches and holds.
So you're saying that the type of exercise we do might influence how our neurons grow and develop.
It's possible, yeah.
That's incredible. I'm picturing my neurons doing downward dog right now.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
It is.
And it opens up a whole new area of research.
Could certain types of exercise be more beneficial for specific neurological conditions?
Could we tailor exercise programs to target the growth of certain neurons? There's so much we still don't know.
So much to explore, but let's come back to those potential treatments you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
You said that scientists might be able to mimic the effects of exercise to help repair damaged nerves.
Yes. One possibility is to develop drugs or therapies that mimic those myokines.
Right.
If we can identify the specific ones responsible for promoting nerve growth,
Okay.
we could potentially create targeted therapies that stimulate those pathways without requiring the person to physically exercise.
Okay, so kind of like a workout in a pill.
Yeah, something like that.
But would that really be as effective as actually exercising?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's too early to say. There's a lot more research that needs to be done
Sure.
to understand the complexities of how these myokines work
Right.
and how they interact with other systems in the body. It's possible that a pill might be able to replicate some of the effects, but it's unlikely that it could fully replace the multifaceted benefits of actually moving your body.
That makes sense. I guess there's no substitute for the real deal.
Right.
But even if a workout in a pill isn't realistic, what about mimicking those mechanical forces?
Yeah.
Is there any way to do that without actually exercising?
There are some early-stage technologies being explored,
Oh, like what?
such as using ultrasound or electrical stimulation
Interesting.
to activate muscles and nerves, but these are still very early in development.
So it sounds like we're still a ways off from having a fully functional exercise replacement therapy,
We are.
but the possibilities are definitely intriguing.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that even if we can develop these kinds of therapies,
Right.
they'll likely be most effective when used in conjunction with actual exercise.
I'm all for embracing the power of movement.
Me too.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the broader brain health implications of this research.
Okay, so let's connect these findings to the bigger picture. This study focused on motor neurons, but it begs the question, could other types of neurons in the brain benefit from exercise in similar ways?
That's what I was thinking. Could all this nerve growth and stimulation from exercise be having a positive impact on our cognitive function as well?
That's a question that researchers are actively investigating,
Cool.
and there's growing evidence to suggest that the answer is yes.
So it's not just about preventing or treating neurological diseases. It's about potentially boosting our brain power in general.
Exactly. Exercise has been shown to improve blood flow to the brain,
Okay.
stimulate the growth of new brain cells.
New brain cells. Hold on, I thought we were born with all the brain cells we'd ever have.
That's what we used to think.
Oh, wow.
We now know that the brain can actually generate new neurons throughout our lives.
Really?
Yeah, it's a process called neurogenesis. Yeah. And exercise seems to be a key driver of this.
So we can actually grow new brain cells just by exercising.
That's what the research indicates, yes.
That's incredible. Where do I sign up for that workout plan?
It really is remarkable. And what's even more exciting is that neurogenesis mainly happens in the hippocampus,
Okay.
a brain region crucial for learning and memory.
So if we're generating new brain cells in the hippocampus,
Yes.
does that mean exercise could actually improve our memory?
That's what the research suggests.
Wow.
Studies have shown that people who exercise regularly tend to perform better on memory tests,
Interesting.
and they have a lower risk of age-related cognitive decline.
It's like exercise is giving our brains a tune-up,
It is.
making them run more efficiently and effectively.
Exactly. And it's not just memory.
Okay.
Exercise has also been shown to improve attention, focus, and executive function.
Executive function.
Those mental processes that help us plan, organize, and make decisions.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense now. I've always noticed that I feel more alert and focused after a workout.
Right, because exercise triggers the release of neurochemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine,
Okay.
which are all involved in mood regulation, motivation, and cognitive function.
So it's not just a physical thing.
Right.
It's a chemical thing, too.
Yeah.
Exercise is like a cocktail of brain-boosting chemicals.
It is, and the best part is it's a natural cocktail without the negative side effects of drugs or stimulants.
I'm sold. From now on, I'm viewing every workout as an investment in my brain health.
I like that.
But before we get too carried away with our newfound enthusiasm for exercise,
Okay.
I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier about the specific types of exercise that might be beneficial.
Ah, yes. The question of which types of exercise are best for the brain is a fascinating one.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Oh, come on. You're killing me here. Don't tell me there's no magic workout formula for a supercharged brain.
I wish there were.
Yeah.
But the reality is the research is still evolving,
Okay.
and there are many factors to consider like age, fitness level, health status, and personal preferences.
Okay, fair enough. So what do we know so far? Are there any types of exercise that seem to stand out in terms of brain benefits?
Well, there's evidence that both aerobic exercise and strength training can be beneficial.
Okay, so cardio and weights.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
But what about things like yoga or Pilates?
Those can be beneficial too,
Right.
especially for improving flexibility, balance, and coordination,
Right.
which are all important for maintaining cognitive function as we age.
So the key takeaway here is that any type of exercise is better than none, right?
Absolutely. The most important thing is to find activities you enjoy
Mm-hmm.
and that you can do consistently. That's the key to reaping those long-term benefits for both your body and your brain.
So we need to move our bodies and challenge our brains.
Yes.
But does it matter how often or how intensely we exercise?
That's another great question. And again, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Of course.
The general recommendation is to aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity,
Okay.
or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic activity per week.
So that's about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Seems manageable.
And in terms of intensity, you should aim for a level where you can still hold a conversation
Oh,
while
that
exercising, but you're breathing harder than usual.
makes sense. But what about strength training? How often should we be hitting the weights?
The recommendations for strength training are to work all major muscle groups at least 2 days a week.
Okay, so a balanced approach of cardio, strength training,
Right.
and maybe some flexibility and balance exercises thrown in for good measure.
Exactly. And remember, it's always a good idea to consult with your doctor
Yeah.
before starting any new exercise program, especially if you have any underlying health conditions.
Solid advice. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. Before we wrap things up,
All right.
I want to hear your final thoughts on this groundbreaking research.
This MIT study really highlights the incredible plasticity of the brain
Mm-hmm.
and its ability to adapt and change in response to experience.
Right.
And it gives us hope that even with neurological challenges or age-related decline, there are things we can do to support brain health and maintain cognitive function.
You know, we've been talking a lot about the physical and cognitive benefits of exercise,
Yeah.
but I'm also curious about the psychological effects.
That's an important aspect as well. Exercise has been shown to have a profound impact on mood,
Really?
reducing stress, anxiety, and symptoms of depression.
So it's not just about building a stronger body and a sharper mind. It's
Ah,
also about cultivating a more resilient and balanced emotional state.
precisely. And that's why I believe that exercise is one of the most powerful tools we have
Yeah.
for promoting overall well-being.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder. This entire deep dive has really highlighted how interconnected our bodies and minds are, you know?
It really has.
We often separate physical and mental health,
Right.
but this research shows they're deeply intertwined.
It's a holistic view,
Yeah.
and exercise seems to sit right at that intersection.
We've talked about neurons growing from exercise's physical force,
Right.
but isn't that mostly relevant for the muscles we're actively using?
Yeah.
What about those brain benefits? Are those also limited to, like, the specific movements we're doing?
That's where things get really interesting. This study focused on motor neurons,
Mhm.
but it makes you wonder, could other types of neurons benefit in similar ways?
Right, like what about the ones responsible for,
Exactly.
in our senses, memory, emotions?
That's the idea. Think about it. Increased blood flow from exercise.
Okay.
It doesn't just target one area, it benefits the whole brain.
Yeah, that's true.
And those myokines, they circulate too.
Oh, interesting.
They could be influencing neurons far beyond just the ones directly connected to the working muscle.
So even though we don't have all the answers yet,
Right?
it's safe to say exercise is like a full body brain boost?
It seems that way.
Uh,
And this has huge implications for how we approach
yeah.
everything from aging to cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm.
We often think of exercise as purely physical, but
Right.
it's becoming clear. It's a powerful tool for maintaining brain health throughout life.
Okay, so I'm convinced I'm hitting the gym ASAP. But seriously, this research is encouraging,
Yeah.
especially for folks who might already be experiencing some cognitive challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Does it offer any hope for them?
Absolutely. Studies show exercise can be incredibly beneficial for people with mild cognitive impairment.
Right.
It can improve memory, attention, executive function, potentially delaying or even preventing progression to more serious conditions.
So it's not just a preventative measure.
Right.
It can be an intervention tool as well. That's
Yeah.
powerful.
It is. And it highlights how exercise is a proactive choice we can make
Yeah.
for our brain health, regardless of our age or current cognitive state.
Well, after this deep dive, I am feeling pretty inspired to move. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
I think the biggest takeaway is that movement is truly medicine for both body and mind. This research gives us concrete evidence that exercise is shaping our nervous system,
Right.
from the cellular level up to the complexity of our brains.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive passengers in our own health journey. We have agency.
We do.
Every time we choose to move, we're making an investment in our well-being, potentially boosting our brain power along the way.
So whether it's a brisk walks, a dance class, or hitting the weights, embrace movement knowing it's a gift you're giving your body and your brain.
And who knows what future research will reveal. Perhaps one day we'll unlock even more secrets about this incredible connection between our muscles and our minds. But for now, I'm feeling pretty motivated to get out there and experience the power of movement for myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. And to our listeners, keep moving, keep learning, and keep exploring the incredible